Grand rising to you, Joshua. Welcome, and how are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, man. I'm excited about this episode. I've been up since 3, and I'm going to let you explain what it is we're going to be taking part in this fine day. But I am very excited. This is will be my first time doing this, so I'm going to leave the surprise and the mystery to you, even though I'm a Scorpio. The mystery is yours today.
Me too. And yeah, we do love mysteries. I'd say let's get into it, even though I don't know exactly what's going to happen. So, in today's episode of Tea Time with Angels, um, I'm listening to my angels following their lead, especially Seraphim Kazael, and he's one of my close kind of personal guides, but he says that anyone can listen to him and talk with him. So I'll be channeling him, and he's been asking to channel again, and there are actually reasons for that at this time, kind of in my development and what's happening. And so basically, I want to talk about channeling, and then I'll talk about, just briefly mention what it's possibly going to be like. So many people are channeling these days. Some of them are of integrity, I would say. Some are doing it kind of for show, and some are pretty good at it, bringing in pretty good information. Some people are really made for channeling. Some people have gotten into it kind of as let's say, spiritual fad, and actually a part of me kind of was like that when I started, and I wanted to become one of these big popular channelers, but I'm not anymore. I've let go of that, and so it just is what it is. And it's angelic information what I bring through, especially from the Seraphim. I've channeled some other angels though, messages from them, and so what channeling is, what they've kind of helped me understand and explain to me, is it's a natural ability actually for all humans to be able to do, especially after you start to get pretty deep into your spiritual journey. I think very few people start channeling without having a spiritual journey in underway first. But anyway, what channeling is bringing through information, messages, teachings, or there are actually two different types of channeling, I'd say, two different levels of it. What I do is eyes closed, and I'm fully aware of what's happening when I'm saying, but it's kind of like my part of my part of myself is stepping aside a little bit and allowing an angel that I trust to also join me, join my energy and mind, and I actually see kind of a lot of information and visuals of what they're talking about while they're saying it, and I let them speak through me to bring in wisdom and messages and knowledge. Some channelers, I think this is a little more rare, but some channelers have the full-on channeling ability in which they're able to, or this is just how they work, but basically a spirit or entity comes into their body, and their spirit they're usually aware, but they're stepped aside, but they can have their eyes open and literally allow a spirit or being, or sometimes even beings, a group entity, actually take full control of their motor abilities, sometimes even walk around as them, speak as them. Yeah, I think that's more common in women, as I've observed, but so that's a bit about channeling. And so what I do have to recommend is to not start doing it with a spirit unless you actually fully know who they are, that they're benevolent and that they're just going to separate after they're done. Otherwise, Joshua brought up a very important point before he started, that sometimes if you don't actually know what you're channeling or getting into or working with, some more malevolent entities, demons sometimes, will actually channel through you, do whatever, say whatever, and sometimes not leave, or sometimes leave something with you. So, yeah, there's some caution there if you're not discerning about that.
Yeah, that tracks with a lot of what I've learned about channeling as well. Like I call those two the conscious channeling and the unconscious channeling. The unconscious where you let the entity fully take over the body, and the conscious channeling where you kind of leave a piece of yourself here and you're aware of it. But what I was saying before is it's a lot easier to let things in to get them back out. As a person who also works on removing entities, I'm sure you ran into cases like this where people got tricked into channeling something or allowing something in, and based on universal law of free will, once they're in, they can kind of stay in. And for what it's worth, even people worth their salt in getting things out can have some difficulty, unwinding some of this stuff from time to time. It's, so I always err on the side of caution, not to scare you, just because I see some weird shit out there, and I know Brother Troy does as well.
Exactly. Two things. Thank you for bringing up the law of free will. Kazael really respects that, and he says that free will must always be respected. The angels always respect our free will. Another point about channeling is that it's a natural human ability, because actually art is channeling too. Art is safer because you're in control of it. You know what you're doing, and of course you can create and control it with your own mind and will. But it's a way of channeling usually your own energy or a part of your soul, energy from your soul, or sometimes some artists get into the flow state and actually start bringing through. I did this, but in my art and writing, start bringing through actually deep and profound and true esoteric knowledge. Or sometimes some painters or visual artists will make a visual creation that is literally a depiction of a being, a spirit that maybe they didn't know before. So yeah, art is channeling. It can bring through many different types of information depending on the clarity and depending on the person, the clarity of their channels too. So let's get into it without further ado.
Yeah, I feel like I have a good arc of questions here for Kazael, and and anybody who knows me knows that I work on integrity, and I will speak from all truth, like the sword that is tattooed upon my back, that I did not give Troy any of these questions before we started. So I am excited because these are going to draw up some of that esoteric knowledge. So I'm very excited to speak with the angel Kazael.
Exactly. So I've said this on my other YouTube channel, our Playtrix Reality, in which I used to post these Seraphim channelings. Getting back into channeling my Seraphim, and so what he does is he speaks specific messages he's prepared for a little while, maybe 20 to 30 minutes sometimes. He has a few things to say this time about humanity and what we're going through. And after that, he makes it clear when the floor is open for questions and Q&A. In the past, sometimes we've had, or he's done this with larger groups or a few people asking questions. But today we're blessed with Joshua and his brilliant questions. I hope to also open this up to larger groups at some point.
10, which was that shores up question 10, which is what is Kazael's message for humanity?
Which is actually a few types of messages, but I'll bring them through and let's get the magic flowing.
Let's get it.
What a pleasant honor it is to be able to speak to humanity once again. Allow me to introduce myself. You may call me by the name Kazael, or Seraphim Kazael, if you wish. For context, I refer to myself often as we, as us Seraphim tend to see ourselves less as individuated vessels and entities, and a bit more as group and communal consciousness. So, as my friend Troy has clarified, I do have a few messages. As is standard operating procedure, as some may call it, some humans term it, I do have some more messages about the Children of New Hope and how they are playing into this update that humanity has passed through. And the very update is a bit complex that we must clarify. And we like to do this often through metaphorical models so that the human mind can better comprehend some of these concepts. As it is that quite often when I speak with Troy's mind, I speak in somewhat complex words and language that sometimes even channel and melt his mind a little bit, to be honest. And we understand that some viewers may not understand all of that in the way that we actually explain the translation and interrelationship between heavenly realms and creation energy that translates into the complex geometrical makeup and interaction with subatomic and physical reality and substrates that you interact with. So, this update, as we could call it, of humanity, you could think of it as another software update, metaphorically, or in our terms, we prefer to call it an upgrading of your blueprint. So, some viewers and whichever path you've taken of deeper spiritual knowledge, or some even scientists and quantum physicists may understand this, that humans operate off of programs and blueprints. This is even evident, heavily evident, through the behaviors and qualities and ways of being that are passed from ancestor to descendant and through lineages, that each of your bodies has specific blueprints of how your genes function. Quite often it affects your individual thinking, attitudes, psychology, as you may call it. So, as you are born, as your body is born, it inherits and is imprinted with blueprints and these qualities, these already existing programs, and that's how nature has designed it very intelligently. So let's be honest and get into the real teaching, the real truth that many of you have been experiencing changes, and some of you have felt this very physically in your bodies as symptoms. Some of you have felt this as just constantly awake, and your channels are awake. Your energy is sometimes on fire, just alive, especially during and as a result of what you term as solar weather and solar bursts. However, these perfectly synchronize and are one with what you call waves and upticks within the frequency output of your own planet. These are just a natural function through this process, this change period, as we've called it, that your own planet is going through as it relates to the larger web of solar systems. That is a different teaching that we have shared before, but back to the blueprint, especially since the time of the winter solstice, as you name it, and just the end of your year 2025. So many, especially those who are on a path of personal development and change, as well as all of humanity, felt this. Between the winter solstice and, as you call it, the new year, even reaching into very early January, many light workers, star seeds, old souls, and shadow workers went through some process, some catalyst of a transformation, a reset, some, as they're unpleasant but useful, went through a virus, some simply floated or passed through portals of cosmic and earthly energy updates. Some went through, as we call them, retreats and ceremonies, special episodes and processes of your own transformation. So this resetting of the blueprint that had just happened has resulted in a somewhat unprecedented mass release of old beliefs, karma, knowledge, perceptions of each other and knowledge, as well as there was such a catalyst and space for such change, such shedding, as you admitted before it. There's been some switches turned on within many humans who are ready for it, who've asked for it, who, especially through universal laws and Dianetic dynamics, who are aligned with their soul's purpose, who are living in states of passion and flow with creation. Even those who are not devoted to a spiritual path, who are interacting with, even listening to, on subconscious or very conscious levels of angels and guidance they seem to be receiving. You've noticed that the quality has changed or clarified recently. So, you've seen this, you've felt this. This is why your blueprint has updated, upgraded. So, here's another perhaps level or a step into this blueprint teaching. And some of you, I hope, will be ready for this. Even Troy had been challenged by this when I told him this, but you can change your blueprint. Just as you've inherited so much from your ancestors, your blueprint is exactly as it functions for building a house or a building, as an architect would use it, drawing out blueprints of each floor, of each of the whole building, of its shapes. Your blueprint is simply what you were born with, and it's the default setting. But who was actually born and why? And yes, we did just answer one of your questions. You are not actually your body, it's not your identity. Your body is, as many have termed it, a vessel, a vehicle, a clay lamp. But the true you is, in truth, living in your body as you're not separate from it while you're alive. But you're such a bright light. Just look at a lamp. Troy often likes to look at and utilize the imagery of a salt lamp. It just has a warm glow. And it's not overwhelming, but it's a glow. That is what the particle of you looked like when your body was born. A little brighter, some of you. So, the blueprint of your body is the default, and between birth and especially 8 years old during that development period, but after that too, many of your glowing particles have been shaped and dimmed a bit. But here's the truth, that your glow is the emanation of creation. And creation, as it has been allowed for clay lamps on planets, has a potential to tap in with a higher, larger will. You have your own free will as a human. The larger portion of you that did not compress into a clay lamp has a larger and more potent will. So by tapping into that larger part of you, whether you call it oversoul, soul, or higher self, this can be done daily, in the morning, in meditations, in ceremony, exercises. Spend time listening to, connecting with that large will. Converse with it and ask it for the specific and minute and potent and inspiring ways that you can work with it, channel its energy to shift and upgrade further, illuminate more of your blueprint, and decide actually which switches to turn on and off, which parts of your blueprint you want to redraw. So this is a direct relation to what the Children of New Hope have actually gone through as well, as they're in this with you. And for those who may not have heard the Children of New Hope teachings before, they are a portion of the children being born and growing up at this time. But they are not anything like the previous waves that you know yourselves as. If you call yourself the black sheep of the family, they are perhaps more accurately the Aurora rainbow sheep of the family. And their energy, many of you have seen this, shines so much more bright from their soul. Even at young ages of their clay lamp, if you want to call it, at very young ages, they're expressing remarkable, masterful skills and abilities that they were never taught, that they shouldn't even know. Some children of New Hope are indeed already facilitating sudden and miraculous healings in others. Even in others with diseases that doctors don't know what to do with or can't change. And yes, there are quite a few of these children, and they deserve your nurturance. Those who stare at the stars, and those who tell you about what the star people, the aliens, behave like, what they would ask of you, what they would suggest for you. These are the children of New Hope. And the Children of New Hope program has been underway since the year 2008 on your planet. It is a 49-year unfoldment period as a safeguard to ensure the growth and evolution in the future of humanity. So as there's been such a reset as well as growth and so much positive development in many masses and communities and individuals on Earth, especially in the last 2 to 3 years, and many adult lightworkers, old souls, and starseeds have felt and heard the call, heeded it, to join with soul family, with communities, with groups, create groups, bring people together. Some of you are now seeing this with the children of New Hope, and the children of New Hope with this current blueprint reset opportunity, upgrade opportunity, are now being given the call to come together, to merge, to collaborate, to build even their own groups and communities for children who already know that they have these powers, as you might term them. As we do often say and remind Troy of, not just through our speech to him, but through direct miracles and evidence that there is no separation. Separation is an illusion. So even as many adult old souls, starseeds, and lightworkers are experiencing these unprecedented, cataclysmic, and catalytic times on your planet with such great upgrades, although your bodies weren't born in the Children of New Hope coding, we have recommended before that as you walk barefoot on the earth, as you interact with the earth herself, as you hug her trees, you may ask for the Children of Hope upgrades and frequencies, as this is a program that she has chosen to welcome, and partially depending on the room and capacity and clarity of your individual blueprint. As you practice this, you'll start to notice perhaps additional powers and muscles within your systems starting to come online. We wish you many blessings. Those are the teachings for this session. And we would now like to open up the floor to the questions that have been prepared.
Thank you, Kazael. I do have a few questions, but I will say that you did a great job of answering quite a few that were on here in typical universal synchronistic fashion. There are a couple things that I've been picking up on the collective from my end that I would like to receive some answers on. There's a lot of talk about spiritual warfare right now, yet the message that comes through for me is about laying down the sword. How do the angels view this moment, particularly in human evolution, in regards to this, and the concept of light versus dark?
Thank you for asking this very important question. About the sword, as you're so familiar with it, that is one device that was created primarily on Earth, but has also been utilized on other planets in some fashion. And of course, it has been created and utilized primarily for war or battles and conflicts. In the absolute truth of the angel realm, we don't actually have swords as you would recognize them, as that is not part of the light and frequency nature of Yahweh, God, Allah, Source, the light that essentially you could say created or spawned all soul and light beings. So, in this dichotomy, as you could call it, and as you've witnessed it on your planet, and as you might term it, a spiritual war, a holy war, we see the validity in this, and as it is valid and evident and real also in your dimensions, in some of these dimensions. Some angels sometimes do present themselves to you and appear to you or represent themselves as or with a sword, because that is what your mind and your archetypal mind will understand for their form and frequency to interact with you. And this is not inaccurate, this is not wrong if you see them this way, as it would be a great challenge even to your awakened pineal gland and mind to see the very bright truth and fully feel and see the frequency nature of an actual angel. So, as your planet in its material exists at a third dimensional reality, it is a playing field for many surrounding dimensions and realities. And as we have described in this dimensional model, you may have a metaphorical circle with many dimensions stacked upon each other. The light bulb is at the top, and it shines light throughout the dimensions. However, the closer you get to the light bulb, the warmer and brighter it will be. The further away, the colder and darker it feels. So, Earth has been allowed, she has chosen also to be and serve as a planet that has been host and playing field to many different types of beings and dimensions for the diversity and expansion of creation. However, she has chosen, as many have realized and heard from her, a lighter and more integral existence. It does take time in your world for this to become the absolute present reality of a lighter, more integral, harmonious, and peaceful existence for all beings on the surface. So at this time, what we call the change period, approximately a 30-year period that surrounds the overlap between long counts. We're almost at the end of it, and this change period is a portal, you could call it, that is some of the final shedding and kicking and screaming of some of the dimensions, lower dimensions, dark, the dark astral, demonic, malevolent, beings of being able to manipulate and interfere with such angelic and divine beings that have been on your planet. So this is why and how it has been evident that there's a holy war between these dimensions and frequencies. However, now Earth as a planet and the whole solar system together is upgrading gradually and shifting out of the lower third dimension gradually to steep, as you could call it, into a bit more of a fourth dimensional collective frequency. And so this is the process. We hope that answers this question.
Yes, thank you, Kazael. I have another question, and it kind of piggybacks on the last one. When I was researching the name Kazael, some people, such as myself, might encounter links to Azazel from the Book of Enoch, who, in our understanding, is a fallen angel who gifted Earth with war and swords, and the sword and the hammer, as it is explained there. Is there a relationship here, or is this part of that spiritual warfare that is a distortion of true symbolic language?
Kazael has no frequency bearing a relationship to this fallen angel Azazel, as the name Kazael, for clarity, is based off of the word name Kazaya, which we initially asked Troy to call us by. And at first he didn't understand that word. We eventually guided him to learn that it is a word in the Japanese language that translates to wind, direction, arrow, path. And this name was chosen to represent the Seraphim for Troy, for this purpose of, and this frequency that we are on, of teaching and learning in regards and respects, and for the purpose of taking steps on a path to back to a divine and unified whole and holy nature. And it is appropriate and very intentional that some of our first teachings were clarifying some of the sin distraction categories that you often number as 7, and the virtue categories that you also number as 7. These were our first teachings that Troy had channeled through us, from us. So that is also where the arrow and directional element applies. Kazael is a seraphim that teaches any particular being how to reset back onto a path toward the divine, a path aligned with their soul's purpose, whatever it may be.
Thank you for answering that question. As a truth seeker, I feel it's important to call out when I see information like that is misleading in this time and age, because it creates that distortion or that war of frequencies that we talked about, or that you talked about in the previous question. My next question is for beginners who feel drawn to work with this beautiful angelic connection. What are some of the safest and most grounded ways to begin working with the angels?
That is another beautiful question. Perhaps the safest and easiest, most accessible way is to start reading into and researching what some of your holy books say about angels, specific angels. And this does not have to be only in the most accessible versions of the Holy Bible, but the other books that have been perhaps left out. Troy has become somewhat fond of the Book of Enoch, as well as the Dead Sea Scrolls. Researching perhaps also what other cultures say about angels, more than just the Abrahamic and Judeo-Christian lineages. To start hearing angels working with us, seeing us, feeling us. It has quite honestly become a very useful tool. The video platform that you would call YouTube, as well as others, video platforms where others post videos about angels. There are many angel meditations. Some of these resonate more with others, resonate with specific individuals more than others. And so some videos, some channels, some teachers, you may resonate with right away. Some teachers, you may dip your toes in the water and see how you feel about them. Angels do serve as a layer of emanations from Yahweh, God, Allah, to serve as direct intermediaries and teachers of humanity. Whether you use the word angel, or whether you also just listen to high frequency and divine beings, or even benevolent gods and goddesses, serve essentially the same purpose as intermediaries, teachers, healers, and teachers of the sacred layers of specific elements and archetypes.
Thank you for sharing that. Another thing that has been popping up a lot in the collective lately is light body and Merkaba activation. Can you explain the Merkaba and the light body, and maybe the differences between the two, if there are any, from the angelic interpretation, that feel less abstract or elitist, and kind of put it down into terms that humanity can understand? And is this something that happens automatically during global shifts, or does it actually require conscious participation and discipline to activate and to keep activated?
Thank you for these traditional and divine questions. So, the Merkava is a vehicle, and its translation from the Hebrew language means to ride. In the Kabbalistic tradition, the body, which includes both the physical body in many of its functions, particularly breathing techniques, some movement techniques, as well as brainwave and chemical functions that can shift, is recognized in Kabbalah as a vehicle for meditation practices that is taught to be used in such ways to synchronize with the energy of the Sephiroth, the Tree of Life, which is some of the more spiritual spheres and coding of what you term as chakras commonly. However, it also relates to some of the more physical and dense coding of chakras. So the Merkaba, although with discipline and meditation techniques, devotion and prayer techniques, prayer practices, and invocation too, the Merkaba does serve as a vehicle for this is also in relation to what Kazael teaches, that a vehicle to support you on your journey, to transport you back into the layers of a light body, of your divine essence. And although awakening and strengthening muscles within the light body is a beautiful and sacred practice and ability and achievement,
Thank you for that, Kazael. You spoke about some of the avenues in which people can find, angelic, working with the angelic realm in a safe and conscious way. Some of my experience here is that not all light is good and not all dark is bad. I've seen a lot of false light portraying to be the light and usually using platforms such as these. So, my next question would be, how can people develop a discernment so they aren't giving their power away to fear, fantasy, or external authority?
Thank you for this challenge and the discerning question. It's so important these days, especially during this change period, which one note about the change period that Earth is passing through after the official overlap change period that is the most challenging. After that's done, it will feel like you'll officially be in the energies of the next long count without the energies of the last one, but it will feel like passing through a school graduation, being done with having to take the classes that are expected of you. But then you've got to explore what's next. And there's more. So, back to this question of the good and the bad and the light and the dark. And this unfortunate portrayal and perhaps behavior of some enlightened or awake individuals bringing through sources and beings of light that poses the one ultimate truth, even though it may be in opposition to all evil, all darkness, or in opposition to other avenues and spheres or forms of truth. versus also the validity in some truth or simplicity or simple validity in just some not so bright beings, but some who are a little more dim, darker, but have also some knowledge and truth, even though they may not be evil, although some may be a diversion also for some individuals. Even clay needs water to be worked with. So,
Thank
this
you.
relates.
Thank you. Oh, I apologize, Kazael. I thought you were finished. I didn't see you were drinking water there. There's a little bit of a
This
delay between our connection.
No worries, and this relates to the model of dimensions as we have explained it, as we describe it, and we have taught and told Troy and channeled through that even in the darker, as you call them, lower dimensions, there are still entire worlds and realms of other beings and creatures that are harmless and simply just living there, the same way that there are nocturnal animals and creatures on your planet that live pretty much entirely or are awake pretty much entirely during the night, and that's just how they've evolved and adapted and how they are. But they're not seeking to cause harm. Those are valid, and those are respectable in the law of free will to allow them to exist, or if they may be creatures with souls, live out their existence as their souls have chosen to explore that reality, that space. Conversely, there are angels, light beings, in the lighter realms. There are also many types of beings, many, as you call them, although they don't have the same types of bodies as you, types of beings, although we don't see them as creatures, different forms. In some realms, in the lighter realms, different types of ET races, as you would call them, have adapted, even without bodies, but maintaining their forms, to simply just live as a light body, as you could describe it in your language. There's so many also nuances of each of these beings. Could you perhaps deepen or clarify the question a little bit and what you hope to have
So,
answered?
so in my experience, and I work, from a shamanic standpoint, where I feel more of a bridge between the light and the dark and less of a light worker and more of a shadow walker. So in my experience, I've had experiences that I would find there was a lot of growth from both ends of the spectrum, and I've also had experiences that I would consider not so pleasurable from both sides of the spectrum in regards to my own personal soul's evolutionary growth, as well as those I've worked with. I feel like, in my experience and what I've witnessed, I've seen both the light lead people astray and the dark lead people astray, and also the paradox of that. So, I guess the way that I can best quantify that from my own personal experiences is that I've worked with deities such as Kali, Hecate, and Nyx, who are considered dark goddesses, and yet at the same time they were um, very powerful in the removing of things in my life that no longer was serving me, so I could better connect to the light, if that makes sense. And I have witnessed people use the light, and as you've said, were channeling things that were supposedly as of the light for their own personal gain. And now I won't jump into a state of judgment around this, but my discernment says that the messages that were coming through did not feel aligned to my soul. Uh, so that is, does that clarify the question for you?
Yes, we can speak on this further. We can say that all is permeated by and seen by the essence of integral love and the heart of God, even though some realms and beings truly appear and you perceive them as darker and very dark, but some, just as you alluded to, are useful to you and helpful in the way that they do take away. They do offer a place for the energies, elements, frequencies, parts of you that you're letting go of, that you don't want to exist with, don't want to grow with. And this, in the spirit realm, can serve the same function as the soil and the earth, the dirt, that helps fallen organic matter decay and be transformed to then be reborn or support the roots of seeds to create new life. This is some of the simple terms we can validate that in.
Thank you. That really helps a lot. We are nearing an hour, and I know that time isn't relevant where you are from Kazael. But so I just want to end this with: is there one essential message that you want to share with humanity that like if you can kind of put it all into one simplistic statement for us that we can take away from the beauty of the teachings that you have to bestow upon us today?
Ask yourself whose will you're living by. Every day, ask yourself if you're living by someone else's shoulds and shouldn'ts in your larger and smaller decisions. And ask yourself how many of your decisions and what you are doing is led by and inspired by your will, your calling, and the larger will of your higher self, oversoul, or even thy will of Yahweh, the Creator.
That is very powerful. Thank you, Kazel. I think I can speak for myself and everybody who listens to this that we appreciate you coming through today and sharing your philosophy and wisdom and truth with us.
It has been our honor to be able to deliver these teachings and answer such questions.
Hi, Troy. Welcome back.
Thank you, Joshua.
I don't know how much of that you catch from the inside looking out, but that was a very powerful session. We are nearing that hour and 10-minute mark for this one, but we knew this one was going to be a little bit longer, so I'll let you close up so we don't continue to keep our dear listeners who have many things to do.
Of course. And thank you for facilitating, Joshua. Yeah, some of these Seraphim channelings go on for a little bit. Kazael has sometimes a lot to say, and me being in that state, I kind of have a sense that it's been a while, but at the same time, it also just feels timeless to me with him. But I also just, it feels good, and it feels lovely and blissful. There's definitely a bit more he could have spoken on, that he could have shared, but we will do more of these channelings.
Yeah, we're setting the stage for more second episodes. We got Reiki coming up again. We'll have more channel sessions from Kazael. And who else knows what we're going to get into here on Spiritual Tea Time?
Exactly. And actually, I do want to ask him a bit more about Reiki, if you don't mind. Even Kazael and the angels have clarified that they have to guide me on my path of Reiki schools. Yeah, they do like Reiki themselves, and even Asui Reiki came about for particular reasons, to work with high frequency energy.
So, yeah, we'll definitely have to do that. Maybe we can incorporate that into one of the Reiki episodes. Since you're doing angelic Reiki, why not channel the Seraphim?
Exactly. Well, it's been lovely, Joshua. Thank you for joining me on this Tea Time with Angels. This has been, I'd say, a good session of spilling the angelic tea, and I look forward to another playtime with you.
Sounds good.
Okay, certainly Tea Time with Angels every Saturday. Thank you very much for listening, for hearing Kazael's messages. I wish all of you to stay blessed. Also, please remember to subscribe and share and comment too. We will answer your questions from the comments.